This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Hoping you had a lovely Valentine's Day, whatever that means. We sort of did. This is Wretched Radio. Made a lovely dinner last night, and Mrs. Friel was not very happy. And in this instance, it was nothing that I had done. I mean, that would normally be the instance, which I sometimes happily, other times reluctantly will step up to the plate and confess. But it was the shooting in Florida. She was just very sad about that. Thinking about, is it 17 kids who were slaughtered? 17
people.
Kids. Yeah. Valentine's Day. Do you think that's going to be a memory for those families? That 17 people. Yeah, because a teacher who apparently also just sacrificed his life. There maybe have been others. I just read one story.
Yeah, football coach that went and got in front of bullets.
Yeah, this is every Valentine's Day will be a reminder to thousands of people that this happened. And Mrs. Friel was just really sad about it because she was thinking about those parents. Just think about those parents. They're high school, they're teenagers, and now just gone, went to school, gone. Teach us, Lord, to number our days. I'm telling you, we just never know. Should this be the primary motivator for loving our kids? No, not the primary, but I don't think we should take it off the table of options either. We just don't know. Wicked things happen in a wicked world. Illness happens. Disease happens. And we should be loving our kids as much as we possibly can. This, if nothing else, should maybe just spur us on to being perhaps a little bit more patient with those teenagers who can be, well, let's just say there's a reason a lot of stand-up comedy routines have been written about teenagers. It can be a little tricky. Love on those teenagers. And, of course, we see immediately the battle cry, let's get rid of those guns, let's get rid of those guns. I got to tell you, did that kid need to have an AR-15? I don't think so. I'm sorry. Especially, Tony just rolled his eyes already. Why did that boy need an AR-15? I just don't see the reason for it. I'm sorry. I know. That suddenly means that I'm opposed to the NAR. No, that's the NRA. I am opposed to the NAR. The NRA. Yeah. Especially when the kid, it seems pretty clear from all reports, had mental illness. Why? Should somebody have? No, and it looks like people in his life actually knew that he had an AR-15 locked up in a cabinet, but he had the keys, so locked up. Seems to me a reasonable understanding. All of these mass shootings, in my opinion, have a connection to mental illness or psychotropic medication. I don't think that we've seen one that doesn't. Can't there be a way of communicating? This kid passed gun law checks. But should he have had any sort of firearm when he was threatening to kill people? I mean, he was talking like that. He did it regularly, apparently. Facebook posts talking about this. And people knew he was actually being counseled. I'm sure it was some sort of secular psychology that was being administered. Nevertheless, they knew this kid was a danger. Are we really giving up the whole gun law argument by saying, no, that kid shouldn't have had a gun? Especially something like that. Are we really giving ground? Seems to me that's just being reasonable. That's all. All right, Tony. Have at me. Why the eye rolling for that comment?
You keep blaming the weapon.
I didn't blame the weapon. But he couldn't have mowed down 17 people without it. Right?
No, and there are no other weapons, no other guns that if you pull the trigger, a bullet fires.
I understand that. I get that. I think, though, you and I actually have agreement on this, and you're going to think that I'm being sensational and that I'm using the most hyperbolic example possible.
You normally do.
But don't we agree that there are some weapons of mass destruction that civilians shouldn't have access to? Right? We would say like a dirty bomb. We would say that's not something somebody needs.
There you have a problem.
All right.
Have access to.
No, he owns a dirty bomb.
Define that.
Owns a shoulder-to-air missile launcher, a rocket launcher. You would say should have that or shouldn't have that.
And how did he get that?
That's not the question.
Yeah, it is. That is the question.
No.
The problem you have is people gain a lot of these through, shall we say, back market channels.
All right, but you would agree that there should be some restrictions on some weapons
There
of mass.
are.
Okay, so
There are dozens and dozens and hundreds of them.
okay, so then the question then is not should we, but where is the line? Correct?
No, I think the question is more how is it enforced and why isn't it, or why is it?
Because a civilian, especially one who is mentally unstable, shouldn't have the ability to wipe out a lot of people simply and easily. I think that would be the rationale behind it. As a culture, we've agreed that
Okay,
bombs
so how do you fix that?
and missiles. You know what? I don't know that I've got the answer for that, or anybody does.
Nobody does.
But I think that when we take the position that we've got to, that anybody who uses a gun to hurt people should automatically be defended because that impinges on our Second Amendment rights. I'm
not defending him.
I know that, but you think that he should have been able to own an AR-15, correct?
Well, he obviously shouldn't have. No, but
okay.
We're not mind readers. Obviously,
Okay, so
'cause he went through all of
so
the
wait a
checks
second. We
that
might
were put
actually
up.
have some agreement here. So let's just see if we can do this incrementally. Somebody with mental illness should not be able to own a weapon of mass destruction like an AR-15. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't call it it's a rifle. It's a semi-automatic
All right.
rifle.
But it can kill a lot of people. So whatever you want to call it, let's just use an AR-15. Somebody with mental illness should not own a weapon like that, correct?
Probably not. No. But
Okay.
how did he?
Well, so then we've got, you and I actually just have
So the
agreement
problem then was enforcement.
My point in all of these conversations is not what the laws should be and shouldn't be. My issue in all of this is that when we talk about it, I get the sense that conservative Christians feel like if we give ground in any way, shape, or form in this conversation, then the next thing you know, the federal government's going to be inside of our house taking away our firearms and our butcher knives. I just don't see it that way. So at least we've made some progress. People with mental illness should not be carrying weapons. And somehow, however this gets worked out, the mental health community should communicate that so that the kid can't go into a store and pass a gun law check because he's just not stable enough to know how to deal with it. Fair enough?
Sure.
That
Any
was
other
like the
utopian
best
ideas you'd like?
Valentine's present I've ever had.
It's impossible to do, you realize, right?
Well, sure it is, but that doesn't mean we don't try. Of course it is.
Of course, we're not trying now, is what you're saying.
I don't. That's really not my concern.
How many laws would
my
make
concern?
sure we tried?
My concern is not the laws. My
That's where I
concern
am.
is simply the way we talk about it. It makes us sound like we don't really care about the loss of human life. We just care about the potential loss of the ability to carry an AR-15. That's
what
my
you're gonna do.
biggest concern. That's my issue.
Hmm.
That's all.
Okay.
Look, we're not a political. I don't know that stuff. I don't pretend to know that stuff. All I know is that when I typically hear more conservative Christians talking about this, I just wonder if they've forgotten that 17 people just got murdered because a kid with mental illness had access, in whatever way, shape, or form, and people knew about it, to a gun that can take down a lot of people. Now, I would say that should be the same thing with a pistol for somebody with mental illness. But I'll just take the incremental gain that we've made today. The issue of mental illness in this country. Now, I will say this, Tony, in an effort to be magnanimous, you're correct. The problem isn't guns per se. We have a tendency, Steve Lawson talking about this in his Bible study this morning. The sin problem, it's not external. It's not culture. It isn't the guns. It is the heart, and there is human responsibility. So I grant you, I'm on the same page as that. It's not the gun that kills people. Somebody's got to pull the trigger. I've often did some statistical research on this. Okay, Mrs. Friel did. The number of people who die from drunk drivers. Why? If the attitude is the mechanism that causes the death needs to be dealt with, then liberals should be opposed to alcohol and should demand prohibition immediately. don't think that's going to happen. Now, having said that, if this is getting up your nose because you love your guns, and I'm not opposed to guns, I promise you. When we talk about these issues, if you get rankled at the way the liberals automatically go, gun laws, gun laws, gun laws, and you just go, come on, people died here. Can't we at least wait until the funeral is over before we talk about it like that? I wonder if we don't sound the exact same way to them when we immediately start arguing for the ability to carry guns that can kill a lot of people very quickly. And that maybe, just maybe, possibly, could be, not saying definitively, there is potential that it actually could undermine our gospel witness. Hey, look at the time. Until tomorrow, go serve your king. There is potential that it actually could undermine our gospel witness. There is potential that it actually could undermine our gospel witness. There is potential that it actually could undermine our gospel witness.